And I am alive! Today I bring you special content. I asked around for a video to react to, and this is what we got. I know the channel of the person we are covering today. I've seen a few videos here and there, but I don't think I've seen the one we will be reacting to. So this is a blind reaction. Let's do this. Maybe we will have some guests at some point. Um, and I will be honest here. I don't know if we will have a part two of that stream. Maybe it will be the only part. If people enjoy that, if there are reaction in the comments asking for a part two, we will be doing a part two in the future. But as of right now, this is just a one off. Let's do this. Let's screen share to have the writing, The reaction starts now. I'm just trying to find the right page. There we go. This is the video we are reacting to. So let's do this.
Heather McDonald, welcome to Dad Saves America.
Thank you so much, John. It's an honor to be with you.
So I've been excited to have you on for a while, but post-election, I feel like we might be living in your moment.
I would never claim that, but I'm still curious as to what the hell happened. I don't want to be too optimistic, but it's in my nature to be pessimistic. I've lost 4 stake bet dinners on the outcome of the election, but I actually find myself thinking if we could hold on to the White House for 12 years, we really could correct the country and return it to merit, excellence, and get rid of the hatred for white males.
I feel like it's a thing, even rewind. It's a thing even here in Canada. And it's coming from me that spent quite some time in a lot of dating app before meeting my current girlfriend. And I will be honest, it's real, it's disgusting. You read some of the people bio on dating apps, and it's weird because they end at hating men, but they are seeking for men. So it baffles me. I don't get it. I don't understand. Why would you date or hate the opposite gender if you hate the opposite gender? I guess that's the consequence of many years of feminism. At first, feminism was very good and important, but I feel like the more modern take on that really ruined that. Now it's just disgusting. People hate men because they had some kind of advantage in history. Amazing, right? And now it's funny because now they are hating men, and there's loneliness, there's depression in the rise. Mental health is a really bad thing now. So this is what happens, and I miss Sparkle. Feel free to join me. You got the link. We are reacting to a Dad Saves America with Eater MacDonald. So welcome to the stream, and hopefully we will have a dragon at some point. He's the one that recommended this video. So yeah, it's sad. Why so much hatred? People cannot solve any issues with hatred. So let's play more of this.
Right off the bat, we're getting right to it. So this is why. So why I say this is this. In this right of center universe, there's a lot of voices from sort of cosmopolitan libertarian types to fairly hardcore in the culture war voices. And in that domain, you are the most, I think, rigorous and hard to beat of the culture warriors. You have taken on the hard issues around DEI and diversity, around the whole discourse about policing and the cops, and you have done so unflinchingly. And I think one way to look at what happened this November is a surprising number of Americans, a more diverse number of Americans than one would have expected, more or less said, I think I might be more with you, or at least I'm not with them.
Yeah.
So is that how you see things? And am I making any sense?
Sure. I would love to believe that. I think we have to take the polls at face value when they say the economy was the big deal in inflation. But one wants to believe that one's favorite issues are also those of the voters. And I would say if there was a backlash against these larger cultural forces, it would be We refuse to tear down civilization. We refuse.
That's more in America. I will be honest. In Canada, we are still very stupid, progressive retards. Um, I say that because we elected again the liberals. The liberals are like the Democrats, but worse because they are very, very far left, and they tear apart economy. They've been in charge for like 10 years, and they are still in charge for another like at least 2 years, maybe a bit more if there are no new election that are triggered by a vote of non-confidence. So guys are in a much better shape, politically speaking, down south in the US. Canada is still in deep trouble. And when you look around the globe, UK is in a worse shape because there are so many like censorship laws. It's bad. And when you look at Australia, their government is even worse than ours because they got a majority there. So whatever the leftists can do, there's no stop to it. At least here in Canada, there's some kind of pushback, but that pushback won't be enough. I will be honest, it won't be enough. And now we got a Dlord coming in. Welcome, Dlord.
Hmm.
Hi there.
Yes,
How are you?
I recommended this because this has been in my stuff. It is, well, Heather McDonald is known more for, she is a political commentator professor. She's been across Lotus Eaters and another. But it's an interesting foray for you due to the fact that you're going to learn a lot because this is part history, part a little bit deep, because a lot of the stuff and concepts she mentions run deeper and they do require understanding of past events. So if you do not understand it, feel free to ask me, Multi, because a lot of what she talks about, because there's a part in here where she's going to touch on like the 1619 project comes from here. But a lot of this goes into the origins of why you see DEI and other practices that go back. She all but mentions which is critical race theory, which is a practice in teaching and clearly like others. So I do have the actual video, so it's a bit too free.
Perfect.
Let me dig this up, and pardon the delay.
Let's do this. Welcome, Miss Sparkle. Thank you for joining us.
So, as I said, the learning, this is a very much a learning. Now, the guy's channel, unironically, he's kind of a libertarian in a way, as we call them. We call them a little bit of libertarians.
I don't know what that means.
Oh.
It's like a liberal, but like maybe not as far left as Canada.
Well, okay, you have
Canadian.
I think what we call them traditionally by libertarians get called that is because when you think of a libertarian, they're not always spot on. They are usually, I usually think of it as we think of it as funny to a degree. But a lot of their concepts, when you see libertarian stances, they're
Heather
all
McDonald.
about decriminalization, etc., destigmatization of drug charges. We
got that crap here in Canada. It's so stupid.
We think like it. We usually think of it as they are. A lot of their platform is very funny, but they're also it's a way of. I have to look up the exact term what people define it as, but libertarians is what we usually call them is because they're usually flip floppy and crazy, and a lot of their ideas are very funny.
Accurate.
They're also like very funny. So like, if you ever see the Green Party is.
Our Green Party is also kind of nutcase. I'm glad they only got one seat.
Yep.
To tear down
Heavily
civilization.
inspired.
We refuse to accept the proposition that standards of behavior, that standards of excellence are by definition racist, which is what the left tells us, if they have a disparate impact on blacks. I have to say that I see a lot of our world up to now having been distorted by what is at present a unjustified guilt about current racism. That's why we're tearing down law enforcement, because we
I also feel like the most racist one are the progressive, because they are the ones that place race in everything. It's kind of hilarious and ironic at the same time. They will fight for racists by being racist.
Yeah.
don't want to have a disparate impact on black criminals. That's why we're tearing down medical college standards, licensing standards, because we don't have a disparate impact on blacks. We were racist. We were white supremacist. We are not that country today. And I've
No,
been
we are
waiting
worse.
for some kind of backlash against the unfair tearing down of our civilizational standards. And maybe that's partly what we're seeing now.
Okay, I'll keep this quick. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so that you won't miss more Dad Saves America as our videos come out each week. And it also really helps us, because when we reach out to guests, they look at how many subscribers there are to decide if they want to come on and share their ideas. So please, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out, and thanks for watching. Now, back to the show. So my goal for our conversation is to, in some sense, offer an entry point into your thinking for people who haven't come across you, and also to explore where we might disagree, because I tend to be, I'm more libertarian minded. So there's certain things where maybe I disagree a little bit, kind of, sort of, but mostly not, actually. But your most recent book on merit and race, just lay out your thesis.
Did you read it, Dlord, the book he mentions? Dlord. Are you still with us, Dlord? Dlord is not there. He's sleeping on the wheel, as they call it. So I guess we'll just move on, and hopefully he will wake up.
For that, so people can get an on-ramp onto the work you've done and the arguments you're making for merit and against this, I guess you'd say, affirmative action style of approach to...
It's lagging so much, but I gotta say, merit is a lost thing now. Any thoughts on that, Miss Sparkle?
Dr. Phil has a whole channel about merit. I'm not really sure what merit means. What does it mean?
So meritocracy is a concept of you are doing by your merits and your deeds or your valuable contribution. A lot of people were being theoretically hired, because you will touch upon this later, as we said, quotas. So you cannot hire. So people go, well, there's not a lot of women becoming firefighters.
Because they don't want to.
No, that's part of it. Or there's not a lot. There's not minorities clearing the civil service exams to become firefighters as well. So, like one of Sotomayor's leading decisions, all right, one of her leading before she got on the Supreme Court was she struck down, and in this decision, she said you need to lessen test scores so minorities can get in. What's funny is most white people cannot pass civil service exams or the physical exams to be a firefighter. A firefighter has to carry, let's say, 60, 70 pounds of gear, plus be able to potentially carry another human body out of a fire.
Even worse than that, maybe you will carry your teammate that's most likely heavy as well. So good luck with that.
Why do you think, and this is what's funny, is why certain people... But meritocracy means companies used to hire based on resumes, not be given a position because of said position, of their sexual organs or what they believe. It's or oh, I like you. I like your position as an ideology. I'm going to bring you in.
That's like
Does that
exactly
make
what's
sense?
going. Yeah, yes, it does, and I will draw parallels with what's going on here in Canada. So we got a very incompetent banker in charge of the country now, and he basically gives high position government to his friends because his friends align with him and his philosophy, his way of thinking about life and net zero and all kind of BS. So it's not because
See,
they're competent, because some of the people in his cabinet were failed politicians in the past, like the mayor of Vancouver, which is one of the worst places to live in because of the housing market. It's terrible. And now that guy is in charge of housing, like in the entire country. So it's like, yeah, let it burn.
but they actually think, and here's the thing: a lot of these people, there was a way in hiring practices. They actively believed that this is a way you hire, but the policy he is talking about is, and this has been referred into the circles we've seen over the years, affirmative action was passed or redeemed in the 90s to allow what is perceived as minorities to get into places because you can't discriminate. Later on, that got turned into like tokenism. Now, at some point, and actually, fun fact, South Park, if you ever watch it, Token was originally called Token for a reason.
Yeah, because he's just the
Now,
black guy we need in
he's
the
the only
show.
black kid in all of South Park, which they've changed it now. It's supposed to be Tolkien as
Oh wow,
J.R. Tolkien, but the
that's
idea
bad.
originally.
I prefer the original.
So the so the idea, right, is it eventually went to oh you can't. Then somehow this got perverted at a higher education. It became a reverse affirmative action. The top percent, 10% couldn't get into a school or would be bumped out due to the fact, oh, we got to let this unqualified African American in or black student in. And
Oh,
even
we
Asians were
got
getting,
someone. We got someone. Hey,
even
Mandalore, welcome.
Mandalores alive.
Yeah.
But
Barely.
but no, but this concept I'm talking about, right? It goes deeper because the idea is if you're in the top 10% of your class, you should be able to get into any university you want. That was at least in the US. So you'll hear her talk about a lot of these ideas, and I could explain this a little bit better. But it's going to be a deeper concept. You wanted not a political video. This isn't as much as about this will help you understand how we got here. Because she's going to explain some of the origins of CRT. A lot of this is like when he mentions affirmative action was not always a bad thing. Not always.
Yeah. So I will ask the panel, starting with Miss Sparkle. Any thoughts on meritocracy?
No.
Okay. And what about you, Mandalore? Meritocracy?
On what?
Meritocracy? How do we?
Meritocracy.
Yeah, yeah. He says it better.
Oh, yes. Without the
Meritocracy
silly
meaning you're hired based on your deeds and your qualities
that's the way
than
it should
being
be.
your ideology.
That's how it should be. I said the best way to do job interviews is to have no names, genders, or anything. Just have a number that it goes into a system under a number, and you just look at their experience. You don't look at anything else.
Yeah, I
You take
agree
Yeah,
with
but
away,
what
that.
you
if they
take
don't
away
have experience?
you take away their name because the name gives away the gender for the most part, and name can also give ethnicity away. Like someone with the last name Singh is not going to be a white Jew from Toronto.
Now let's say with Miss Sparkles, why would you be hiring someone to be an electrical engineer that has no training as an electrical engineer?
Well, training. I'm just mean that they have no experience.
Why would you not hire anybody? You said you need somebody with experience versus a training position.
Oh, you didn't say that. Why are you arguing with me? That's not what you said.
Fact. She's right. The woman is right. What do you have to say for that?
Why am I not arguing? It's proposing the arguments that she understands. So why the idea a lot of people see, that's the thing. You want to hire a person, you're not going to it's kind of strange, but meritocracy has been lost, but it was one of the first things highly corrupted. As Sorter could probably testify, because I showed this to Sorter a little bit, but it's a big video to get through. So if you have questions,
Helping people,
Right.
and helping people of color, helping people who have been historically, at least their forebears, if not themselves, who have been oppressed.
Right.
So what's your argument?
Well, helping people of color, you don't do so by tearing down standards. You don't do so by having double standards and saying we don't expect the so-called marginalized groups, but above.
I do agree, and I will also add this, especially in Canada. Actually, the whites are actually like the minority now. Like we got so much immigration, we are getting lost there. So minority changed over the years. I gotta
you're going
say
to
that.
become the UK here very shortly.
Yeah.
Canada's
all
on the
black.
way very quickly. Yeah.
Instead, you're going to be the joke of embracing a lot of Islamic. You're going to be embracing a lot of Indians.
Well, no,
Hell yeah.
we're going to be Islam and Indian, so it's going to be a very shitty, destroyed country.
Like they already
You're
started
terrible.
protests to block roads, like the trucker, but because they are like, I don't even know what religion they are, but because they are that religion, they can do whatever they want without their bank account being froze. They're not white. They're not
Anyone
white.
who's not
privilege.
white gets a free pass here. It's just like England.
Yeah.
To live up to the same standards as white and Asians, we'll have a set of double admission standards, we'll have a set of double hiring, double promotion standards. That's not the way you help people. It's condescending, and it means that you
It's
are for sure
racist.
going to stunt people's ability to live up to their highest potential. The book uses as sort of a core concept an idea that arose in the law called disparate impact. And this grew out of a Supreme Court case in the 1970s that looked at the fact that traditionally America's anti-discrimination law says you, employer, may not intentionally discriminate against blacks. You can't say, I'm not going to hire people because I don't like the color of their skin. That intentional discrimination violates now, belatedly, finally at long last, what were our and should be our founding ideals of.
And it's funny because you can't say, "Oh, I will give you that job because you're a woman."
Equal
Yes, you can
treatment
if you
for
run
all.
DEI.
Yeah.
So we had the
Well,
Civil
it's
Rights
a
Act in the
practice.
1960s.
This is a practice that caught up to a lot of companies later, because I have a story of a Starbucks I used to go to. It's always seemed, and this was early 2000s, they started to hire people, like you would never see a conservative there. We're a very conservative leaning area. Why would you only hire liberals at once, or art students? And you're like, and then you talk to them and the atmosphere started shifting. You started seeing like, and it's weird, like it was a beacon of this stuff in an area. But then I deduced they were just hiring art students. They were all hiring a certain type. And then as soon as the manager I had known a while finally wanted to move positions, they didn't have a position for him. So they moved him to like maintenance person or whatever, like he wanted or so. But it was so weird. The store shifted further. It was just a manager hiring someone they liked. It had very low turnover. So it eventually became an ideological bastion. You never mention stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It happens a lot more often now.
I hate her glasses.
Thank you.
We said it's about time we're going to start treating people equally. By the 70s, most of that overt discrimination had disappeared. Employers were really living up to their obligations under the law, and yet you didn't yet have workplaces that were proportionally black and white. You know, blacks are 13% of the population, and so the expectation was if you were a Google tech lab, if you were doing artificial intelligence, you should have 13% black nanotechnologists or AI researchers. That wasn't happening. And so the courts said, well, we want to kind of expand the scope of the civil rights laws, and we're going to get rid of intention as something that is legally impermissible. Now, if an employer has a perfectly colorblind neutral standard that he never intended to use to discriminate, but it has a disparate impact on blacks. So, for instance, if this was a power company, Griggs Power Company, it said it wanted its employees to be able to read to a certain level in order to be able to read power manuals and, you know, how to work a utility plant. That neutral basic standard meant that more blacks were being disqualified for employment. They weren't meeting the standard. And so the court said, if you have a neutral standard, but
it sounds so racist for real. When you're not doing that,
It is
it's like,
racist.
yeah, it's racist.
When I work at Safe, no, and they say it's equity, and equity is bullshit. I worked at Safeway. Sorry if I'm a bit slow running. I am kind of been ill and stressed and been through.
You're getting over your
it's
your loss
everything.
of the other. Oh yeah,
Everything.
No.
They used to Safeway, and they used to say, take this with pride, that they had a specific, so many jobs opening for so many races. Like they had like 2 jobs opening always for India, like a handful of jobs for Indians, so many for, and they were proud of this, saying that they were the most. And they had like a bunch of jobs opened up for Native Americans. Now the problem is those jobs and the Native Americans who they were hired were the biggest turnover. They were faster turnover than there is in fast food employment, because they'd hire them with no experience and they weren't qualified for the job, but because they had to have so many natives working for them, they would just hire anyone. They would cause shit, or they wouldn't show up to work for a week, and then they'd have to fire them and start over again. It's bullshit. Hire the best qualified. Everyone these days has an equal opportunity. Yes, once upon a time, there was horrible racism and slaves and whatnot. That's not its state. By today's standards, whites have the least amount of rights these days.
I'm cold.
And if you look at white straight males, actually have the least amount of freedom compared to anyone else. Like if you're gay, you get more, like it's all about victim points. And being the white straight male is considered the least. You have the most. You have the best chance in life, so you get the least amount of help. And
is it too late to throw in the joke that liberals view white people as, Asians as white people?
Hey, if you go to
That's actually really true, by the way.
No, it's not even just Asians. It's also
Asians
in the States, when it comes to crime statistics, a lot of Latinos are considered white.
Yes, Latinos get considered that, surprisingly.
And blacks.
White Latino is a thing.
If you look at arrest reports, how they're trying to skew crime statistics by labeling everyone as white.
Yeah, that's hilarious. That's so
Like-
stupid.
And it's just
Negatively,
yeah.
It's so stupid. Yeah, that's the world we live in now.
affects blacks, we're going to call that discrimination, even though that's not your intent. So now we have this idea that a standard that is not intended to discriminate, it can be colorblind, objective, but it means that you're disqualifying more blacks. That's bad. And we've taken that concept and we've gone around to every meritocratic institution, again, to law schools, to medical schools. If the LSATs, the law school admissions test, if blacks do more poorly at those, we're going to throw those out. If blacks do more poorly at the medical college admissions tests, we're going to throw those out. At medical licensing, we're going to throw those out because they have a disparate impact on blacks. This is a concept that destroys excellence. It destroys achievement. We see it in the arts, where expectations of a certain proficiency for instruments, if that has a disparate impact, we're going to throw that out. We're throwing out literature, and we're
let's
seeing
set-
it in the law too.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
Christine.
In criminal law, right? That's why we're getting rid of prosecution. That's why we're getting rid of incarceration, because those laws also have a disparate impact on black criminals.
One example
Pause a
of
second. Here's what's funny. You know, you always hear about crime statistics in an area. In the U.S., and I've gone over this, and it's always funny, you can befuddle liberals and progressives now with this. And it's actually a fun fact and true. And if you go to parts in like the UK and Europe, you can see the same thing. Why does like 25% of the population or 30% comprise like 40-50% of jails and prisons sometimes, or crime statistics? Ponder that a second, right? Like, seriously, think about it. How does the black population in the US, as of recent years and due to years of liberal mismanagement and treating their population like crap, or other social economic factors, and then when you look at that, right, as a statistic, you're like, why is this? But they comprise about maybe 40% of people in prisons. They, in certain areas, they're the leading ones committing the shootings or the crimes. Like, one of the blind spots in this philosophy is like Chicago. They ignore black on black crime.
Yeah, and I will also add this. Let's be honest here, blunt and honest, like we should be when we talk about that. A lot of criminals are surrounded by criminals. And if the system tells you, because you're black, you're at higher risk to be called a criminal, or you are surrounded by criminal, you will become a criminal. It's like it's really hard for me to frame it the right way, but basically, you know, a criminal, you're if that's your friend or a family member, and he incites you to join him or her, that's influence, you know, and that influence can make criminals. And I will say this: a lot of black that end up being criminals, it doesn't spawn out of nowhere. It's because they're surrounded by other criminals like that, and criminals make criminals, abusers make abusers. That's how it goes.
It's basically let me help you out a little bit. It's basically the neighborhood you grow up in. If you never escape the ghetto or welfare, you're surrounded by what you are there. So it breeds the intergenerational section.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what's going on. And that's why there's less whites, because white, let's be honest, in the past, yes, it's true, we had advantage. So we didn't need that kind of resort, and our life was better because we were white. But it's no longer the case today. But like there's still that generational wealth, if we can call it that way, that a lot of black don't really have.
You also had cultural teaching.
Bullshit.
You also had generational. You also had a community where usually minority communities do not own, like there's a period where I remember like you'll see like a lot of like blacks get tossed around, a lot of Latinos. Like you only have it. It's like people ask why like gangster culture was embraced by a lot of liberals. That was largely due to the fact that when you're in a community, you only have other criminals or your best best people you ever see or around you. You're inspired by what you see growing up. If
Yeah.
you have a community led by maybe a pastor, a teacher, or something, you're going to be inspired by that.
Yeah, that's true. So if all of your friends are criminals, maybe you will be one. That's all it is.
There's a phrase of "show me your friends," and the phrase is "show me your friends, I will show you your future."
Yeah.
I hate to say that is the old, but
Generational wealth is a bullshit thing, though. Anyone can try and make a buck, and these days, well,
Except
nowadays,
when you're in Canada.
well, no,
no.
you can't get a part-time job because all the part-time jobs and new jobs are taken over by street shitters. But things these days are easier to go if you really want to work at it. There's ways to do things. And there's been enough people who've proven, who've come from nothing, who've worked their way up to something, that is no longer an excuse. Shortly after everything and when blacks were first given rights and stuff, it was still a thing because they were starting from the beginning. But enough people, including minorities, have built fortunes from nothing.
Yeah.
It is possible. It's not easy. No one ever said it was going to be easy. If you're just going to be sitting on the couch expecting opportunities to line you up, not going to fucking happen. But if you want to make it happen, you can
Vote
make it
something else than liberal.
Well, I mean, you
that
also
I've heard
let me say
about
this. You got a second. You got this thing in Canada. I just noticed. You guys are basically your average earning. Like I was gonna there was a video I was gonna recommend, but I don't know. Maybe it's like too little close and sore for you guys. It's a guy he mentions. Like your realty just kept going up and up and up and then your markets also collapsed from the home loan thing. But here's the thing. Your earnings, if you guys get incorporated into the US, a lot of your earnings would be below what people earn in Mississippi.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you're not making earnings. Like your average hourly, like you guys used to have earning capital.
Yeah,
like, I didn't realize it was that bad.
That was 2006. Like during the ARPA years, we were very close to you guys.
Well, liberals and NDP are just destroying. And with all, especially nowadays with all the taxes on bullshit and whatnot, it just takes away from the money that you do earn. They want to tax our fucking taxes at this point.
So there's funny. I keep bringing back Canada because we are in a bad state.
No, okay. The video that I was going to recommend is the one I sent to him, and I watched it. It's done by a guy. The video is called "Is Canada a Failed State?" Yes, it's the.
Actually, that will be a future thing. Probably.
I will have to get that to you. It was like to the other
way that there was blind rehearsal or tryouts, that in order to take away racial or identity preference in the decision making, you would have the people try out and you just hear their music and you'd not see them, you wouldn't know anything about them. And so that seems like definitionally all right, perfect. It's literally like a blind test on the basis of the output alone. And as I understand it, this mentality you're talking about has led to the reverse. So now we're going to actively make sure that we put your race and your identity at the foreground of our decision making. How is that not just, well, I guess Ibram X. Kendi says that we need to have active discrimination to counter past discrimination, right? That's his anti-racism
That's so stupid.
model.
Two
No, we
wrongs
need to
doesn't make it
actually
right.
Ibram
actively
X.
say
Kendi is a
less of you,
classic,
more of you,
lovable human
because
being.
that happened in the past,
Right.
and that kind of forever. Like we're always going to be doing that.
Right.
Is that a fair articulation of the other side's perspective?
Yes, this was George Floyd race riots resulted in mass psychosis across the country. Every elite institution declared itself racist. You had art museums saying, "We are racist. 5,000 years of Western civilization is racist. Our new mission, as per the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, is anti-racism." You had restaurants saying, "We're racist." You had law firms saying, "We're racist." You had the Mathematical Association saying math is racist.
And that goes back to what I said. If you keep telling you're something, you end up being something.
Hey,
So,
if you know the Lego
That's
movie song,
fate.
everything is awesome. Just change the words to everything is racist.
Okay, so what she is talking about, and I hope she explained. I have to remember. I got through it took me 2 times listening through this whole thing because a lot of parts of it, like the stuff she brings up, is 2000 and 2020, like the George Floyd thing was just the dam that it's like the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, in terms of what they're asking people to do, if that makes sense.
it does.
It's the thing is, a lot of stuff with DEI just didn't come out of nowhere. Critical race theory was teaching a generation of kids where you could see the change in history or other items like this. As an example, it exists because of the reason, or in the George Floyd thing and other cases, like what was it? I remember Ferguson in the U.S. The officer who was punched in the face because the black guy just strong arm robbed a liquor store, and then it was the Michael Brown case.
And they were
Before that.
all lies.
And then there's like this thing of there's been other stuff. It's like done that. Oh, Obama stumbled on it as well and said Trayvon Martin could have been my child. And it was proven Trayvon Martin was committing crimes. So it's like, okay, you have to understand, the George Floyd thing, and then there were cases, there was like a couple of others. They had it was what broke the dam, and all the quote unquote tribalism and indoctrination had kicked in. And then everyone forgets the Summer of Love. You could not mention the Summer of Love on YouTube. But Antifa, and I've been searching for an article for the longest time. Antifa came from an idea, and I remember a story. It started as when we first heard about it. It was a Fox News report out of the Pacific Northwest. A student group sacked a cafeteria or something. And I've never been able to find this story again because it was such a small story. But it made it through. But that was the roots of Antifa. You had a lot of these things that we have been dealing with. Like the George Floyd thing was it kicked off because the large majority of the 90s, we had race issues solved.
George Floyd was also because of when it happened. People were locked up because of COVID in the house, and any little thing could have caused it. Not just George Floyd. It was because of everything.
Well, not just anything. It's the idea of social injustice and such. And we weren't as far along as the decriminalization of stuff. Like you started seeing, they don't talk about to this day the property damage from Black Lives Matter. You have cities that haven't come back at all. You can just look at it.
Yeah, and to bring back to that segment, I feel like we are doing a lot of self-fulfilling prophecy where we say we are racist and then we act racist because this is what we do as human. We usually reflect our thoughts or things through our actions. So
See, white guilt is strong in liberal-leaning countries. There's
yeah,
this whole thing. Like I've often said, it goes back. If I ever find anything on political correctness, political correctness was the canary in the coal mine. As Arch used to say this, and we used to say, the worst thing you could call a person is racist. And in the UK, they go, "You don't want to be racist, right?" And they go to these people, and then clearly, as white people were like leaning, "Oh no, that would be the worst thing we could be called." Years ago, 90s and early 2000s, and they've just mined that. They go, "Oh, you don't want to be sexist, do you?" They've just moved this along. It's like you can't nudge, and maybe one day I'll have to introduce you both to Gramsci, but that's a deeper theory than anyone.
And it was all this idea that a standard that has a disparate impact is racist. And Anthony Tomasini, who was the lead classical music critic of the New York Times, he called for what's called deblinding orchestral auditions. They were blind, you wouldn't know the identity. He said, I can't stand, and Alex Ross of the New Yorker, their lead music critic, this breaks my heart. These people, these classical music critics who are presiding over a dying tradition that they should know contain some of the most profound expressions of human eros, sorrow, longing, joy that's ever been created. They should be selling this art. And here was Tomasini, here was Alex Ross, here was the BBC Music Magazine after the George Floyd, during the summer of 2020, the summer of mass psychosis, saying, I can't stand going to a concert hall and listening to white male composers and having whites in the audience. This is giving young people an excuse to avoid this beauty. So Tomasini said, deblind orchestral auditions so that we can make sure that we can racially engineer the composition of orchestras. Conductors are not discriminating. Nobody is discriminating. Even if you didn't have blind auditions, all that a conductor cares about is he doesn't want the first horn in a Strauss tone poem to blow his solo. He's looking for excellence. He's looking for perfection. If it was an all-black orchestra and they were the best, that's what he would choose. The idea that conductors or music managers are discriminating against the most qualified classical musicians is absurd. Here's how absurd it gets, John. Again, you would think, how can a blind audition where you don't know the identity, how can that be racist? Here's what else is racist under a disparate impact standard. Speeding cameras. It turns out speeding cameras are racist.
Yes.
If they tell us,
what's that?
You should have speeding cameras in Quebec that
Yeah.
cameras at
They're
like
the automatic.
intersection.
So they're automatic cameras that detect speeding,
Oh, radar. Oh, I see.
Red light cameras.
Radar. Yeah, we
But
call
you know,
it
red light. You got in Montreal. You guys have red light cameras. That cameras, if you go through the intersection, catches you.
Yeah, that's called radar here.
Yeah, they have sometimes in the States they have them more than just at cross sections. They have them just on certain parts of the road to see.
Okay, now I get it. Okay.
Fun fact: you should be able to call AI-driven cars. Do you know why the first AI cars and stuff like self-driving cars were blocked? Because they ran over black people and children.
Wow. Okay.
You don't remember? Do you know? And that's almost that's an AI joke based off of cameras, like when they used to white balance.
Yeah.
Like how you used to have those pictures of like the first some digitals that would automatically white balance and balance a picture, and the black people would be almost black completely out by the picture.
Yeah, I heard about that one.
That's pretty much and that's the exact same thing except more dangerous and not as funny. Well, it's still funny.
That blacks speed at higher rates. They're racist cameras. The mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, waged a war against a technology called ShotSpotter. And I don't know whether, you know, our libertarian, non-libertarian differences will show up here. We'll see. ShotSpotter is an audio technology that picks up the sound of shootings, of drive-by shootings,
Okay.
which is important because it turns out in the inner city, which is where almost all drive-by shootings occur at an absolute barbaric rate, 80% are never called in for various reasons. And so ShotSpotter picks it up and alerts the police, and at the very least allows first responders to get there quickly, where they may never get there at all without this technology. Well, ShotSpotter tells us, again, that most shootings are occurring in a very small portion of Chicago on the south and west sides and sort of known hotspot corners in overwhelmingly in Black neighborhoods. So,
And I'll also say this. I can relate to this in a weird way. So Montreal is big, but like you go outside of Montreal, like Laval or Longueuil, more Laval than Longueuil. When you go in Laval, it's dominated by immigrants because it's cheaper, and usually like because the city is so crowded, immigrants actually gravitate toward Laval and such. And it's crazy, in a few months there were more killing I heard about in Laval than in Montreal. And Montreal is far bigger, but there's a bit less immigrants, or like a lot of the immigrants in Montreal are like French people. And when you go in Laval, it's like Arabic, it's like Indian, it's like black people. A lot of black people are in Laval. And criminality is so much higher for some reason in Laval. So it's like, what? What is going on there? Like a smaller place with less people has more crimes than Montreal. What is going on there? Can relate. I can see. It's crazy. Any thoughts on that, guys? I guess not.
it turns out that this audio sensor is racist because it tells us a message we don't want to know. So Brandon Johnson said, I want to get rid of ShotSpotter, except for the DNC. ShotSpotter said, okay, you don't like us, we're out of here. They were going to pull out in February of 2024. Brandon Johnson said, not so fast. Leave in September, but stick around for the convention. And sadly, ShotSpotter agreed with this annoying and incredibly insulting conditions. But that's where we've gotten to, is that a camera, a computer, a non-sentient being is racist.
So I want to explore some term setting. There is a tiny part of me that feels like ShotSpotter sounds like the surveillance state.
I knew it. Good. Excellent disagreement.
Part of me that's like, oh, I don't know about this. I don't know about the robots. Are the drones gonna just start becoming Judge Dredd? We'll set that aside for now.
I got that reference.
Parse this a little bit between the race and equity things. They're deeply connected, and the police issues, which are the two areas where you've spent so much of your time.
Yeah.
But first, I want to pose a question which is this all overblown? Make the case that this sort of woke DEI, disparate impact, explicit racism as the replacement for colorblindness ideology. Make the case that this is broad-based and happening in places beyond Columbia University's campus and a couple of whack jobs at Disney. Like how much of a problem has this actually been in the broad institutions of America for real? Make your argument for that.
Well, broad institutions of America, I would say in every professional school, your viewers, if they have white male sons and they've applied for graduate school, I would bet a very large proportion of those white males, if they're not in some LGBTQ category, have not gotten into their first choice or second choice or third choice for medical school or law school because they are the bottom of the totem pole. There is no more
That sounds racist, but that's what's going on. You fight racism by being racist. Congrats, folks. This is how society evolves in the West.
Reviled creature in an academic environment today than a straight white male. And that occurs as well in the professions. In law firms, Black law school graduates are catapulted way ahead of their GPA ranking into
More DEI. Here in the cabinet of the Canada Prime Minister right now, the liberal freak, we got like 50% woman, 50% men, and it's hilarious how colorful that cabinet is, and it's also filled of extremists and crazy nut jobs. So here we are, DEI in full swing. It's hilarious and sad at the same time.
associate positions way ahead of their white and Asian colleagues. The press hires on the basis of race. Publishing, good luck publishing a book if you're a white male, non-LGBTQ author. The media, we've seen that.
Well,
Government,
Yeah, I mean,
government.
the Oscars is a good example in the media space, which is they've now made explicit race quotas for your crew. Like, if there isn't sufficient diversity in the people behind the camera, you're not qualified to get an Oscar now.
Right.
As of like I think this year.
Right, it's unbelievable. And Broadway, after again during the George Floyd race riot, there was this movement called "I See You, White American Theater" that had the most hilariously hysterical, hyperbolic manifesto, basically blaming theater for having the gall to ever mount a play written by a white male, and they've just this group
Aren't
has
most of them? No, I mean seriously, aren't
Yeah.
like most of the historical
so
plays and
cancel it,
musicals?
cancel it. So after George Floyd, like every new play on Broadway that year was by a Black author. So
Oh, to be racist with the racists. It's hilarious. These stories are entertaining. Any thoughts on that, Dlord? I guess the Dlord is not around with us right now.
and you have I wrote about in the book the amazing institute at Juilliard, which is one of the premier arts conservatories in the country.
No, let me say
for
this though
classical
on
music, but also for
the
theater.
one, right? Because if she gets into the part with the Juilliard story, the thing with the Juilliard story, right? I've been listening to it. A lot of like I'll let you let it play out. It's because the fact that she, like Hamilton, right? Hamilton, the play is a satire made as if black people were the founding fathers, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
satire, they turned that into something it wasn't. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, yeah.
So, and then you do movie reviews, right?
Yeah.
This stuff, now they said you can't get into an Oscar if you don't have diversity.
That's true. That's why they force a lot of diversity around.
Theater and dance, and the Black students there just had this incredibly self-involved narcissistic meltdown when they were asked to listen to a Zoom reenactment of the African slave trade in order to increase the empathy of all students towards what Blacks went through, and out of that centuries-long experience of sorrow and oppression came Black music and Black theater. But the Black Juilliard students said, "How dare you subject us to this?" And they had a complete meltdown, and they too demanded we
Wait,
should.
what were they melting down about? This was historically black music that they were melting down about listening to?
This was a 3-day workshop that Juilliard had brought in, run by a Black theater professional at NYU, that was going to be an immersion in Black art, in above all musical theater, spirituals, jazz. And on the opening day, this black theater professional, Michael McElroy, had the students watch by Zoom, because we were all socially distanced at that point, a reenactment of the African slave trade whose dialogue came out of the TV series and book Roots by Alex Haley, black author. And during this reenactment, the black students were all texting each other about how this was just too oppressive and how dare they appropriate our history. It's impossible to understand. Do not ask me to explain this, John.
Okay.
It's weird. Aren't they the one that want diversity and inclusion and DEI crap, and then they complain about DEI? Is it what's going on there? What is going on there, Dlord? I feel like I
Roots,
don't get
by
it.
the way, is a very famous mini series that it had the guy who was LeVar Burton in one, I think, in the remake or the original, and it focused on a generation of black people who it's in modern day, but it also discusses their memories of their families, ancestors as slaves.
Okay.
And it goes from when they're captured on shit, put on ships, and everything else. And this is where I'm saying you're learning the roots of what people were being taught by. Crazy, huh?
Yeah, it's kind of weird that
You never knew this.
Yeah, that's weird. People are so obsessed over colors. It's hilarious.
And it's very funny how progressive or successful people do not see themselves as racist, but they mimic it. And a lot of liberals got gutted by the fact you see this. This is often why you'll see me reference progressives in other items.
Yeah.
Now you know.
It can't be explained.
No, that.
But the Juilliard capitulated. And so these students went on a rampage. They had their manifesto saying it is racist to ask us to learn the general American dialect. It is racist to ask us to ever go outside of our racial identity. But of course, the rule is, as usual, double standard. So blacks can play white roles, but whites can't play black roles. And so they claimed that they were oppressed by having to just be in a environment where, as you say, sorry, it's a European tradition. We
DI
were
is so
Caucasian
ridiculous.
demographically. That's a reality. There were no blacks on the European continent for a very long time, and when they arrived, they were very few in numbers. You can't expect that culture to have a whole tradition from the start of black art, just as we don't expect China, in its Chinese classical opera tradition, to have African writers. China's not going around apologizing for its classical opera.
And Japan are probably the most racist in the bunch. So it goes the same way. Like, don't expect Japanese to involve so many black people. It's kind of hilarious.
Because it doesn't have blacks. India's not going around apologizing for its classical epics because they were written by Indians and not by Africans. The West is the only civilization engaged in this pathetically ungrounded self-flagellation.
Because we think of ourselves as saviors of the world.
Don't pull punches.
I'm sick of it. I'm sorry.
I'm
Because
sick of it as well.
It is perverse.
Oh, man.
This is the question that I've been pondering for months. What is with the West that it is uniquely self-canceling at this point?
I also need to share this because we are right in DI, racism, that kind of BS. I feel like most of the people I know that are white, they can bring a black girlfriend at home and we won't have any question. But sometime when a black girl brings a white man at their home, the mother or the father will be like, why is he white? That's hilarious. They are probably as racist as us.
I want to come back to that question because it's actually a profound question, and you point it out in truth, because America is a uniquely culturally diverse society relative to all of human existence and most of the.
What did you want to say,
I was going to say too on this. The idea, right, of it wasn't surprisingly, millennials are very much an intermixed generation. That's why a lot of millennial marketing, it's like, even I had to explain to my mother, why do they always show like a black and a white woman or something? Because there was a large amount. But it's a lot of these virtues you're seeing got perverted at some point in the name of progress, or it wasn't bad.
Yeah, and I will share my own experience again. So my girlfriend was like, early in our dating stage, she was like, if you bring me at your place, because she's black, if you bring me at if I meet your mom, how will she react? And I will be like, my mom won't care you're black or white. All she will care about is if I am happy. And then I asked her, why would you ask me that kind of question? And she's like, well, on my parts of the family, they will have a hard time accepting you. And I'm like, why is that? And she's like, oh, but like my mother really wanted me to be with an African guy, but I don't want a freaking guy. So I was like, oh, okay. So that's where it comes from, that kind of worry. And I was like, my mom doesn't care. And it's a bit sad that your mom would care about that kind of detail. And it shows that black people are not always perfect. Um, just saying. Um, and I know it's not the case for every black family out there. It's just one case among many, but I'm sure I'm not the only one. And it's funny how in media and movies and TV shows, it's always the white family that's racist. It's kind of hilarious because I didn't experience that at all. I've experienced the reverse, but hey, that's just me, and I really ADI. It's just weird.
Planet. So, and everyone I've traveled more than most Americans, which is not hard because we don't travel that much abroad as a people. We're obviously the least racist country on planet Earth.
Right.
Like and it's like literally obvious, and it manifests my former guest, his name is escaping me, Wilfred Riley, had brought up a survey about perceptions around things like interracial marriage and all kinds of other things that would indicate the level of kind of racial prejudice.
Right.
And America was like top of the charts for tolerance of all the things that you would think suggest we're pretty good on race.
That's true. Again, I
And we
experienced
beat ourselves up the worst. But isn't that also because we had a uniquely horrible chattel slavery? And it is, you said, okay, the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s and the changes. And then by 1980, it's done? To play devil's advocate, that sounds crazy. You're telling me in 15 years we solved racism and we should move on? That doesn't sound reasonable or fair after.
That's true. I don't think we solved racism. And I'd say we are not as racist as other places in the world. Again, I will repeat my own story. My girlfriend was worried that my mother would reject her because my girlfriend mother would reject me, and my girlfriend was wrong. And again, I think we are. I think a lot of people are racist everywhere, and I think the most racist ones are just the ones that pretend they aren't. They aren't, but their action says otherwise. Um, so yeah, let's hear more about that interracial theory there.
Hundreds of years of oppression and segregation and redlining and Jim Crow and a culture that says blacks are second-class citizens or not even human in its worst form. You can't tell me 20 years and we solved that problem. Isn't this just maybe an overcorrection, but still a reasonable and necessary rebalancing that's going to get it wrong at the margins, going to overplay its hand a little bit, but still fundamentally the right thing to do?
Well, first of all, answer your question about is by 1980s is enough change, but remind me to return to your claim that we had a uniquely barbaric system of chattel slavery. But it's a very valid question as to whether from 64 to 1980 you could have a transformation of the culture.
And I think that transformation is here now. Society has changed. And I think it's the perfect moment to actually end this discussion and this reaction for tonight. So I will say this: if if there's demand, we are having a second part to this, and that's weird because StreamYard is weird. I try to change the things, but we are still very small in the corner. I don't know what's going on there.
What'd you do? You
Um,
changed your layout, didn't you?
I tried to change the layout right now. It doesn't work. I
There it
think I
goes.
will refresh.
Ah. No, this is a good one if they're. Oh, he's refreshing. So, the thing about this is, it's a very interesting thing. I shared this with Sorter. So, it's a. It's an idea where you might could go through it or interest or go you're seeing they're political in nature, but it's not. But she's talking about the cultural aspect that led up to it. Not a lot of people understand why is the cultural aspect the way it is. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Remember, I've always said everything has an origin.
Yeah. So, what do you have going on your end of the internet?
I will be having ZZZ on the 6th is 2.0. Dawn Fission apparently was today, but I missed it. But the launch of it, but that ain't be too bad. I'll do that tomorrow. But other than that, I do have games, and now that Mandalore seems back, hopefully we'll finally have our Andor thing where I might have to drag Miss Sparkles through it. But that's what I have going on so far.
Amazing. Um, in my end of the internet Thursday, I will talk about Karate Kid Legends and the other Karate Kids. Are you at all interested into Karate Kid, Dlord?
Sorry, repeat that a second.
Karate Kid, Karate Kid, Karate.
Which
Karate.
one?
The newest one and the older ones as well.
Did it? Is it the one that just came out, or?
Yeah, yeah, Legends. It came out like Friday.
I heard about that. Okay, so at least it's like apparently Cole said actually I'll have to put Sinners on my watch list. I was under the impression Sinners was just a blacktivist leftoid film that they'd been portraying as super good, but I get to watch it though.
Yeah, so go watch Karate Kid Legends, the one with Jackie Chan, the one that just came out Friday.
Mhm.
With that being said, that's Thursday. Thursday around 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We talk about that. And we will also do a special discussion about our prediction for this month of July because we got three big release with Jurassic World, Superman Legacy, and Fantastic Four First Step. So
Fantastic Four is hit or miss apparently because if you go off the so okay, you have Ironheart coming out that no one has a theory for. Even when I talked to Cole randomly, I caught up with him, and he basically said Ironheart seems like a show that was in theory thrown out, and it's meant to be
wow.
buried. He agrees. Like it's so weird. He doesn't get the marketing. Fantastic Four, supposedly the toys and the models have been released for it. It shows the ending is supposedly Sue Storm and infant Franklin Richards, uh, along with a female Silver Surfer defeating Galactus. Now, this is speculation. This comes from the test group that was shown. and the toys. Toys and the models don't always mean everything, unless you're Jurassic Park. Which is true, by the way. Toys usually spoiled half of the Jurassic Park films recently.
Yeah.
But in there, if they do that, it's just female MCU defeats Galactus, and it's. But supposedly, all right, just take this with a grain of salt. The test screening Disney used for Fantastic Four that this came from was mostly DC fans. Now, but they still said the film was mid.
Okay, that's
So we
worrisome.
will see. That's just a little bit. But again, I asked him about just pure test screenings. So we'll see. But I'll join you Thursday. It should be interesting.
Perfect. So Karate Kid and July. So yeah, that's the plan for this week. Next week, next Tuesday, a James Bond stream, late 80s James Bond, The Living Daylights, A View to a Kill, and A License to Kill. That's
and you are
very
going to talk
well.
about the one that no one ever talks about. Never Say Never Again.
We already talked about it.
I'm surprised you know that one.
Yeah, I'm not.
That is
I did my
actually a
research.
canon. What's funny is that's based on the James Gardner storyline, which
Yeah.
has the older James Bond.
Yeah, we did cover that one already. Anyhow, that's the plan for next Tuesday and Thursday next week. We will talk about Ballerina, the John Wick prequel with some woman in charge now because 2025.
I don't know. Is
Anyhow,
that supposed to be a preview? Is that supposed to be a prequel or a second or in-universe story?
I think it's a prequel because it seems like John Wick will be the antagonist, and that was during his days as a hitman. So that was probably before the first John Wick. I think that's what we will be getting. We will see. I cannot wait to go watch that Friday. That will be my movie of this week. Anyhow, with that being said, we are out for tonight. See you next time.